Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Delegate Melissa Wells. This is the first meeting of the Local Revenue Subcommittee on Ways and Means. Today is Friday, February 7th. It is 1:32 p.m. So this afternoon, we have three bills for consideration. We have House Bill 133, we have House Bill 6, and we have House Bill 59. I would like to just share with everyone that today we will just be discussing House Bill 59. And we will take up discussion and possible voting on House Bills 133 and House Bill 6. So we'll start with House Bill 133, State Department of Assessments and Taxation, notification of constant yield tax rate. Actually, let me just see, SDAT is still coming in the room. Let's just take one moment. Stanley, can you remind us of what House Bill 133, what it does? The concept.
Sure. So that's the bill that repeals the requirement that SDAT notify each local taxing authority of the constant yield tax rate each year. It just does away with that current requirement. SDAT also publishes the constant yield tax rate for each jurisdiction on its website each year.
You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Yeah, first time, and I make that rookie mistake. Thank you, Delegate Hornberger. So I know that there is an amendment for consideration on House Bill 133. Stan, could you just discuss and describe what the amendment does, please?
Sure. So the amendment, instead of repealing the law about constant yield, instead it says that the department has to provide the constant yield tax rate on written request from a local government, as long as the written request is made before February 1st. And then if the written request is made, then the department has to provide the constant yield rate to the local government by February 15th.
Thank you. Is there any, let's see, is SDAT here? Hi, Josh, would you like to, I know you had, is there anything you would like to add with regard to the impact this will have?
Hi, no, this amendment was something that we've also worked out in the Senate. I think some counties were concerned that if the constant yield were repealed outright, might cause some concerns with local charter changes. We wanted to be sure that we could provide those figures upon request. And we just have a February 1st deadline, which gives us 2 weeks before we send the packet of information that we send to all counties on February 14th. So that's a more than reasonable timeline for us.
Okay, great, thank you. Members of the committee, are there any questions? Delegate Hornberger?
Yes, on the amendment, should a jurisdiction request that constant yield rate and receive it, how would a citizen access that if they so chose?
So currently, I think that citizen would request it from their local government. I assume that that would be the case in this situation as well. We don't provide it directly.
Yeah, so just the concern there is, if sometimes these constant yield rates can be used, to raise or lower taxes, depending on which way the jurisdiction wants to go. And if a watchdog citizen or someone who's concerned about their rate going up were to contact the government and say, hey, I want to know if you're raising my taxes, for example, the government, it sounds like they'd have the ability to not share that. I mean, would they have to FOIA it? What's just from a transparency standpoint?
I do see, Stan, I see your hand. Did you want to respond to Delegate Hornberger, or would you like for Josh to respond?
Actually, I just wanted to ask a question. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
Sure, yes, please do.
So I just wanted to ask, so Josh, does SDAT actually send a letter to each local government notifying them what the constant yield rate is each year, in addition to putting all that information on their website, on your website?
We do, yes.
Okay, so it could be viewed there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does that, your question is answered, Delegate Hornberger?
Yes, many
Okay.
things. Yep.
Okay. Are there no further questions on the amendment? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the amendment?
I move as amended.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Or raise your hand. Aye. All opposed? Okay, the amendment passes. Is there a motion on the amended HB 133? Is that correct, Stan?
Yes, you
All
got
right,
it.
making sure I've, been a student for a while.
I move as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we need to do a roll call or just still vote voice?
Voice is fine, or show
Okay.
of hands.
All right. A show up, are all in favor of accepting HB 133 as amended? Raise your hand or say aye. Okay, Delegate Long,
Yeah, you have the votes, and
okay,
since the votes in subcommittee aren't recorded, just as long as it carries.
okay, great. Thank you. So HB 133 passes and is recommended to full committee. Okay, we will now take up for discussion HB 6, State Department of Assessments and Taxation, Property Appraisal Aids, Geographic Images. Stan, could you remind us of what this bill does?
Sure. So this requires that SDAT have a database of state and local geographic images, including geographic information system visualizations and oblique aerial photography. It also provides for how the database is to be funded. So counties would pick up 100% of the first 1 million in costs, and then 50% of any costs in excess of $1 million. But the contract is expected to be about $1 million a year, so it would be mostly paid for by counties. And of course, the database is used to do more accurate assessments, and it's expected that that will yield more property tax revenue.
Thank you.
Mhm.
There is amendment for consideration on this bill. Can you tell us what the amendment does, please?
So the amendment is basically just about ensuring that the new database will protect privacy. So it just says that SDAT has to develop by June 30th policies to protect the identity of any individual whose image is captured by oblique aerial photography. And then it also requires a report to the General Assembly on those policies by July 15th. And this is an amendment that the Senate is expected to, or is going to adopt.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Stan.
Mhm.
Are there any questions on the proposed amendment? Delegate Wu, is your hand raised from the vote from last time?
No,
that a
not
question?
done.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure. Delegate Hornberger,
Couldn't get it done.
no worries.
Yes, thank you. The presentation that was given by SDAT sort of hinted that there was only one vendor in this space. Is that accurate, or are there multiple vendors that could provide this sort of service? I just has some reservations about a sole source bill being passed.
Josh, would you like to respond to Delegate Hornberger's question?
Absolutely. No, there are multiple vendors who provide this service.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on the amendment? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the amendment?
Adopt.
Second.
All right. All in favor of the, or any discussion, any further discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Okay. All opposed? All right, seeing none, the amendment passes. Is there a motion to adopt the bill as amended?
I move as amended.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Delegate Roberson, or yes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was looking at committee testimony, and I've seen some proposed amendments coming from Baltimore City along with MACO as far as adjustments. For instance, Baltimore City states that they're already doing this, and some others have concerns around the fact that they're already paying for this to take place. And so I'm just wondering if they've provided us any amendments, or if anybody's here from there. I see Mr. Kennelly on. I tried to reach out to Mako, I couldn't find any contact information to try to get an answer as far as what they actually would look for us to do on this amendment, on this bill. And so I just wanted to see if, we were open to any amendments when it came to them, if they got us any language around this issue on what they raised. Same for Baltimore City did provide language for us to amend. And so that was kind of my concern around this space of how much we're charging our counties to do this, up to $1 million. And then after that, 50%. So that was kind of my concern I want to raise for the committee, and just wanted to hear from Mako as far as their thoughts around what needed to be addressed.
Sure. I know, I see Nina Thimilis is here from the mayor's office. Nina, did you have anything you want to add to the discussion around Baltimore City and impact?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So in Baltimore City, we already have a contract with a service provider for this purpose. And so we just want to make sure that our current contract is not affected as long as the parameters of the company that we use meets the standards of SDOT. So we don't want to incur any increased costs, and also don't want to have any effect on our existing contract. I don't have the current expiration of that contract, but those were our main concerns. We're, happy to be participating and using JS, but we just want to make sure that given that we already have this in place, that we're not negatively affected.
I don't know, Josh, is there any feedback or response you might have that would provide, I guess, or what is the process for verifying whether or not the existing contract and vendor that Baltimore City has would be a qualified vendor to provide these services moving forward?
So yeah, right now, the vendor that's used by Baltimore City is the vendor that I know that it's used in at least the majority of the 9 counties where there currently already is some version of an aerial photography. They absolutely meet our standards. I'm not going to say that they're definitely the vendor that we're going to go with, but we have that's the software that we are currently piggybacking off of. They are, and so this expansion is kind of based off of the work that we've seen we can get from them.
And to expound on that, so is I guess the compatibility is more about the software, not specific to a vendor, but the software that is utilized, correct?
Well, so in terms of compatibility, really the data, the company that's going to be responsible for gathering the data and storing it the vendor is going to be responsible for all of that. So yeah.
Before I get to you, Delegate Roberson, I was gonna see if I could hear from Kevin Canali if he had any response, but
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the question. I certainly would agree that we need to make sure that contracts are honored, and I agree with Nina. As far as the fiscal note, we did raise concerns, especially with the proposed cost shifts in budget. But after talks with SDAT, we do believe that we would see increased revenue here, and so the investment would be worth it. So we'd be okay letting this one go with the fiscal note. But certainly, I agree with Nina. And want to address their concerns as far as contracts go and making sure that those would still be applicable. But again, I appreciate the question very much.
Madam
Delegate
Chair,
Roberson, or who's it speaking?
I'm sorry, this is
Okay, yes,
Stan.
yes.
Can I just add something that might be helpful here? So the bill does require the Department of General Services to gather information and input on the requirements of their appraisal aids by consulting with SDAT and affected units of local government. So it might be that in the implementation of this bill that they have the flexibility to take into account the concerns that Baltimore City is raising.
Thank you. You read my mind because I was going to ask something along those lines. So
Oh, perfect.
thank you. Okay. Delegate Roberson, I know you had your hand
Yes,
raised.
ma'am. I just had a follow-up for Josh. He said that this is already implemented in 9 counties. I didn't see which 9 counties it was in. Maybe I overlooked it. Could you let me know what 9 counties is already taking place in?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can certainly follow up with you.
Thanks. Well, I'm mainly concerned about Prince George's. If you know that off the top, I see that Frederick County and Anne Arundel already have some form of this.
Prince George's does use the technology, yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of all in favor of the bill as amended, raise your hand. All right, all opposed. So Delegate Hornberger, Delegate Griffith. Bob? Want to come on camera or voice your opinion? I'm sorry, Delegate Long, excuse me. Forgot my manners. Okay, all right. Well, seeing that the bill passes as amended. All right. So now we're going to discuss HB 59. Just want to remind people that this bill is for discussion today. And I know that there is at least one amendment on the bill. Stan, could you remind us of what HB 59 does?
Yeah, so this is a departmental bill that you passed last year, a version of this. There's obviously a lot of pieces, so I'll just go over some of the more important ones. So the bill requires withholding owner-occupied properties from tax sale when the lien is less than $1,000. It requires withholding residential and religious property that have liens for water charges alone. It limits redemption interest for owner-occupied properties to 10% a year. It creates expedited procedures for local governments to obtain control of vacant and abandoned properties. It provides that taxes accruing after the date of sale are not included in the amount needed to redeem. Requires notification to the tax sale ombudsman when a foreclosure action is filed for owner-occupied property. Requires 90-day notice to tenants after a foreclosure judgment is entered before the new owner can take possession, including posting that notice on the property. Prohibits filing a foreclosure proceeding, beginning a foreclosure proceeding until 12 months after the date of sale for owner-occupied property. And it expands the homeowner protection program to include heirs of homeowners.
Thank you very much. I know we had one amendment for the bill. And Delegate Griffith, you don't want to discuss your amendment today, is that correct? Okay.
All right, we'll figure this thing out one day. Come on. No, I have a couple. I have a couple of amendments, but I want to hold off on those for the time being. I've been working with Mako on some of those thoughts, but I believe Delegate Hornberger has an amendment. I think at least for the time being, we want to hear that, and certainly if Mako has any comments, certainly love to hear those as well.
Okay. Delegate Hornberger, do you have an amendment for today's discussion? No?
Not prepared for
Okay,
that.
all right. I just want to make sure that I was not omitting you from the discussion. For today.
Yeah, and I just will say that both of us supported this bill last year. So in the spirit of working it out, I think it's a good direction.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Stan, could you discuss the one amendment that we have received?
Yes, this is the amendment I drafted for Delegate Wells. Basically, it just says that for properties that have a lien only for water and sewer service, that they would be required to withhold residential property, but that if the residential property was vacant or abandoned, that they would be able to take those to tax sale. So it basically carves out of residential property, any residential property that's vacant or abandoned, they could take that for tax sale for water alone.
And it's my understanding that this was Delegate Miracle North. You're on mute, Delegate.
I said, go ahead, Madam Chair. I'm sorry. I thought we were in
Oh, okay.
discussion, but go
Yes,
ahead,
no, it
please.
was my understanding that this was language that was included in last year's bill, and this was cleanup. I don't know if anyone from DHCD, I see Jordan and I see Chuck Cook.
I can just say, Madam Chair,
Okay.
that it wasn't in the House version. And I can't recall whether the Senate adopted it at the very end of session, but maybe the department knows that.
Got it. Mr. Cook, would you like to chime in?
I was going to say that this amendment had been talked about last session, but it was never formally adopted.
Okay, sorry, I misspoke. Do you guys have any feedback on the amendment? Sorry, I caught you mid.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
No
I don't think that we do on that particular one. I mean, we would view that as a favorable amendment, obviously, especially with the secretary being the chair of the Baltimore Vacancy Reinvestment Council.
All right. Okay. Delegate Miracle North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do remember this bill very vividly last year, and I did vote for it, but I definitely had some concerns going into it. So I really take heart as to the advocates' work, especially getting Secretary Day on this bill. So my question to you is, have you talked to the advocates on these amendments? Because what I don't want to see is to come back next year and deal with this if we're missing something off the wall with this amendment change.
I did talk to one Odette Ramos, and I know that Claudia Wilson Randall is here. I haven't had a chance to talk to her. So Ms. Randall, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
I don't think I have anything to add to the conversation at this time.
All right, you're not opposed to the amendment at this time?
I'm not opposed to the amendment at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you. Delegate Hornberger.
On both the amendment that you just offered in the bill, do those in any way impact commercial property, or is this just residential?
It's just residential.
Thank you, Stan. Delegate Roberson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if it's not on the amendment that this question applies to, I can wait until we discuss the bill in its entirety. But my question is regarding if you have a tenant in your home that has not paid the water bill, even though the water's in their name, but they move out, the owner is still responsible for that unpaid bill. And I'm wondering, do we address this anywhere in this bill as well? Because now they're held responsible and liable for the payment of this, and now are facing the implications that really should be left up. And I know we say take the tenant to court, But now there's, if you can't get them to court, you still have the same issues if you never get your money back. So I just was raising that, and it might not be relevant to this amendment or this bill, but just want to see if this is addressed in any way.
Stan, are you able to answer that question, or?
I mean, I know we're not voting on the bill, so if we
Yeah.
need to discuss this another
But
time.
it's a good question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't think that your particular scenario is addressed in this bill. For tenants, it's mostly just about right now they get 30 days notice between when the property is actually, when a foreclosure is actually entered on a property and when the new owner can take possession. And this extends that window to 90 days, and it also requires that the notice of that be posted on the property. But that's really what this bill addresses with tenants. It doesn't really address the issue you raised, Delegate Roberson.
Thank you.
Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I've had conversations with a number of the advocates, and I think there are some concerns around, specifically with taking this tool out of the tool belt for local jurisdictions, because they don't have it's their most powerful tool to be able to pay for, water and things of that nature, right? And if they lose the ability to use this for residential, then the rest of the ratepayers are going to have to absorb that, right? So I think the concern is, certainly nobody wants to touch what Baltimore City's decided to do. That's a local decision. I think everybody respects that. But I think that there's a big conversation around, at the very, very least, owner-occupied properties. I know there's tenant issues and things of that nature, and obviously with properties that need to be rehabbed, things of that nature, that's another conversation. But certainly taking this tool out of the tool belt for localities for owner-occupied properties, I think it's part of a much bigger conversation we should continue to have. And I don't know if Kevin or anybody wants to chime in on that as well, or Justin.
I had a question. I was just curious, and Stan, I don't know if you have the answer to this or if anyone else, but do we know how many jurisdictions currently use the tax sale process for unpaid water bills?
We actually do know that. The tax sale ombudsman does an annual report and gathers the data from the counties. Almost all of them do. There's a few that don't.
Do you know which ones don't do it?
I believe Montgomery, Prince George's, and Charles, I believe. But I can confirm that for the subcommittee.
And I'm
That's
curious.
correct. That's my understanding as well.
Okay.
That's my understanding as well.
And I'm curious, in those 3 jurisdictions that don't do it, is that just that they do they have any statutory limitations for doing it, or is there a law in the books that states that they cannot do that? That's the question I asked.
No, I don't believe so. I think it's just a local policy decision that they've made. And I think specifically for the Montgomery and Prince George's, the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission just doesn't do it as a matter of policy. And they have a collections department that handles it instead. I don't know what Charles County does.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then the other question I have, and I don't know if I'm curious if there's any data on like the percentage of, I guess, what percentage of water bills are collected in maybe Baltimore, if anyone could chime in on like for Baltimore, what that would be, or if folks can chime in other jurisdictions as well, like what percentage of water bills are paid and like what percent actually would be in tax lien territory.
Madam Chair, I have some data regarding unpaid water bills and the collection rate, but they're kind of segmented into different groups, but I'd be happy to make sure that gets to the subcommittee, maybe by the end of today, but otherwise by early next week.
I'd appreciate it. I think the committee would appreciate it.
And Madam Chair, I will also say that I think the fiscal note does a really nice job in Exhibit 1, kind of outlining that information that you're looking for.
Thank you. Delegate Griffith, is that a new hand?
Yes, new hand. Yes.
Okay, sorry. Not that your hand is new, but is that a new?
I get it. No. No, nice. So just one more point I just want to follow up, especially how it relates to municipalities and counties. Not only would this impact their ability to collect these water bills and not spread those losses upon other ratepayers, but this is also a revenue conversation for both municipalities, but especially related to the counties and revenue issues when they're trying to find different ways to try to pay for Blueprint and other initiatives we've mandated upon them. So that's why I think we need to continue this conversation related to those local impacts and their ability to absorb the unintended consequences of what this legislation may do. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Okay, let's see. Is there any more discussion? As I stated, we will not be taking a vote up on this. We will not take up a vote on this bill today. I think there's a few more amendments that are in development. Is there any more discussion that folks like to have about the bill this afternoon? All right, seeing none. Thank you all for coming to the first meeting of the Local Revenue Subcommittee in Ways and Means this year. And I guess I know we'll probably try to meet again. I'm assuming possibly next week, but I will make sure that I give people ample notice of when that next meeting will be. And with that, do we have to do an official motion to adjourn? Stan?
Up to you, Madam Chair.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All right.
Great job. Great
Thank
job.
you, everyone.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Appreciate your
On
leadership.
Monday at 11 a.m.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank
See you.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.